Good day, everyone. My name is Jessica Duke, and you're welcome to an open conversation with an atheist. This program is organized by the Christian Apologist Group of the Household of David Church. Who is an atheist, you may ask? An atheist is a person who believes that there is no God. With me on the program today, I have Ebele, who is a medical doctor. I have Ayo, who is a pharmacist, and Moyo, who is an engineer. And of course, we have our guest, Osamuyi Abasuyi. Nice to meet you. So we'll just go straight into the program, but before we do that, we'd just like to establish some ground rules. We would not be accepting any clapping or cheering or yaying. It's just going to be a flat conversation. Silence, please, in the audience. The first 1 hour, 30 minutes of this program will be for this conversation, and the last 30 minutes of the program we use for questions from the audience and from our viewers. Questions can be passed to the ushers who will bring them to the front. Also, you can forward your questions to the quest for truth at householdofdavid.org. I'm sure that it will be projected on this below the screen. Thank you very much again. We're going to go straight into the conversation. I was going to be asking our very amazing guest today, why did you become an atheist?
It was a gradual process of realizing that I have always been an atheist. Actually, like I didn't become an atheist. It wasn't we got to this point. I got to this point, and I then said that I'm not going to become an atheist. I think when I look back, I have always been an atheist, really, and I'll say so for a couple of reasons. So first of all, I'm a very, very inquisitive person, and I like asking a lot of questions. And the questions I asked, the questions could not be answered by what was preached in church, basically. And I also came to realize that the things that were said in the Bible and the things that the preachers also said also were not completely aligning with reality and what is actually true. So, as time went on, I realized that, even though I've been going to church and I've been, sitting down and doing everything that is asked of me as a good Christian to do, deep down I knew that there was nothing out there. There was no divine being, so to say. And we are on our own, basically, and the truth is, is pointing, or the evidence is pointing towards the direction of there is no divine being and there is nothing special out there. So coming to that realization was when I decided that, probably it's time I stop going to church and fooling myself. So all along, I guess you could probably say I was probably fooling myself going to church previously. I've always been an atheist. So it wasn't I got to this one and I said I'm not going to be a Christian anymore. No, it was just like I stopped fooling myself and I decided that I need to come to terms with reality.
Wow. Thank you very much. So I picked a few things from what you said, and it seems like you have congruent reasons why you came to this, conclusion. I'd just like to know what justification you have for the belief that there is no God.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, actually, and the first reason I'll probably give is that there just isn't enough real hard evidence out there that there's actually a God. Like I remember praying, when I used to pray anyway. I don't pray anymore right now. But when I used to pray, I used to like, at the back of my head, I was like, okay, is he go like speak right now or something like that? And I was really little all those times anyway. But I think those kind of questions at the back of my head, like, okay, when is he going to speak? When is he going to appear? Is it just going to be all faith, all true? And for me, that's not enough. So I always give an example. Like, say, if I told you right now that there is a person called Marsha, and Marsha is on another galaxy. she's, let's say, in the Andromeda galaxy. Right now we're in the Milky Way galaxy, but let's say she's in Andromeda galaxy. She's on a planet called Ellipsis or something, And you told me, oh, okay, and you asked me right now, like, is there any evidence for Marsha? And I'll probably tell you, oh no, there's no evidence of her, but I'm telling you about her, that she exists. So you need to believe my word that she exists. But that is not enough, for you to actually. I don't think that should be enough for anybody to just accept that, okay, yeah, like, there's good enough evidence that there's a Marsha exists because I strongly believe that Marsha exists somewhere.
Okay.
Just because I strongly believe, or me and my friends strongly believe that Marsha exists, doesn't mean that Marsha exists. If we can't give concrete evidence for the existence of Marsha, then why should we take it based on faith? That is one reason.
Okay.
Then the second reason is the other reason that that many people hammer me on. It's like, oh, okay, then how did everything come to be, like the universe and everything that we know right now? I tell people that the answer to that, I don't know the exact answer to that. And honestly speaking, I think that there are certain questions that we may not ever know the answer to those questions.
Okay.
It's just like a given fact. There are more questions than there are answers. And there are certain questions that we may not have certain answers for them. Now, just because I may not know how the universe came to be or how everything on the planet got made, doesn't necessarily then mean that I would then take any answer that is just flying out there, in essence. So it's just like you're in an exam hall, you are writing an exam, you have questions in front of you, and there's this particular question that you don't know the answer to, and then next thing, people are passing like some kind of answer around the whole exam hall, but you have no idea about the question, and you see this answer. Does that mean that you then be like, oh yeah, let me just put the answer there? Like, yeah, it's fine. Like, okay. It's the possibility of that answer being wrong is very, very high.
Okay.
Because you don't know what the answer to that question is. So if you don't know what the answer to the question is, why not, keep trying to seek what the answer to the question is? And I think that is where science comes in, really. Because in the end, why should we bother to find out about the universe, its origins, how the universe works, if we already know the answers to that already? Because that's what religion and Christianity teaches you. We already know what the answer is. The answer is God, and He's the one who did everything. And so why should we bother looking for the solution, the answer to the question? We may not get the answer, but in getting towards the answer, we are able to discover more about the universe and solve solutions that people couldn't have even dreamt of could be solved. Like, I can give you an example right now.
Okay.
Michael Faraday, the man who discovered electricity, like when he was before he discovered it, people thought he was mad for actually like attempting to actually look for something that nobody could find any use for. In the sense that people didn't understand in this time, people didn't understand what electricity could be used for. There's not like they had light bulbs or they had like TVs or anything like that. But right now, if I told you that we don't have electricity, people like, why? Because we all understand the importance of electricity right now. But in his time, people didn't understand the importance of electricity, and they thought he was just crazy for actually trying to understand the phenomenon, basically. So, if that kind of inquisitive nature is basically just put down, and we are telling people that like there's a divine being that created everything, and he did this, that, like, okay, why should we bother actually trying to understand the things that we don't understand, and because the things, when we understand the things that we don't understand, we come to solutions that would actually help people, or that will make the human race a lot better as it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think those are some of the reasons that
okay.
I would give, yeah.
Amazing. So I got a few things from what you said. So that we don't go ahead of ourselves, what you mentioned about origin is one of the questions that we actually have. So we'll just put that aside for now. But from what you said, I heard two things, which I just want to make sure that the panelists understand clearly. One is that, you shouldn't just believe that there is a God because someone says it, because they believe it. So don't impose your beliefs on me, right? Okay. And then the second reason is that you think it sort of limits your capacity or your thinking level if you believe that there is this God somewhere, because you said you wouldn't be able to have.
I wouldn't say it limits, not in that sense. What I was driving at is, I think that some of the things that that people attribute things that they don't know or don't understand to God, basically. Like,
Okay.
if just like in Nigeria right now, like
Like
some
an easy
people,
answer. Like an easy answer.
like like an easy answer.
Okay.
Like, okay, why is there lightning in the cloud? Oh, it's God. He's probably throwing thunder somewhere or something, or he's trying to punish somebody. Or why is there an earthquake? It's God. Like, people attribute those things to God instead of like actually trying to find out what is actually behind it.
Okay. So these two major reasons brought you to this conclusion. So I'm just going to go to the panelists now. I'm sure that some people have a few things to say. Who would like to go first?
Okay.
Okay.
You said quite a handful of things, and I will take you up on the last comment you made when you said that it's impossible to. There are certain questions that is impossible to know the answers to. Did I paraphrase?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's
okay,
correct.
Yeah, I think it would be wrong to make such a statement, because making such a statement would mean that you know all things to know that there are some things that we cannot know. Did you get that? It would be wrong, because my question would be, how do you know that there are answers to some questions that we can never know? So it's a self-defeating statement already, right? Now, having said that, when we look at, I'm happy you said, with regard to your honesty, when it relates to the origin of the universe. When we talk about reality, reality is what is, right? Belief is what you think about reality. Belief is not necessarily reality, but you ask questions to uncover what reality is, and that's what leads you to truth, right? Now, there are answers to those questions. How I perceive reality, forms my belief. And there are certain questions that you can ask that can help you understand, what reality is. Now, when we look at the origin of the universe, I'd just like to address that a bit, since you've already mentioned it. For a long time, scientists believed that the universe had always been there, right? The universe was eternal. But recently, a lot of evidence has come out. In fact, there is no cosmologist that doesn't accept the fact that the universe has a beginning. And when I say the universe has a beginning, it has been established that time, space, and matter has a beginning, right? Time, space, and matter has a beginning. Now, if time, space, and matter has a beginning, I don't want to go into the details of how they came to that conclusion, but this is established fact. If time, space, and matter has a beginning, then whatever caused that beginning, because everything that exists has a cause. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. Think about it. Even in reality, everything that begins to exist has a cause. Now, if time, space, and matter has a beginning, whatever caused time, space, and matter must be timeless, must be spaceless, and must be immaterial. Now, if you have eternity, think about it. if you have eternity, right, why don't we just have nothing? If you can put a time to something, you can put a time to the universe, call it 14 billion years old. You have put a time to it. Why don't we have just nothing? It takes something personal to make a decision to cause the universe to come into existence. Because if that's not the case, then we should have nothing. Remember, there was nothing. There was nothing, and all of a sudden, we have something. Now, I've heard some forms of arguments against that where, they talk about the quantum mechanics. But if you look at quantum mechanics, it's not nothing. It is something. It's a low energy field. And it is fluctuations in the quantum field that results in, particles popping into existence, if at all that happens, right? The particles already exist. They exist in a low energy field. And when something disturbs that field, you have particles popping into existence. So that's not an explanation for the origin of the universe. So think about it. Whatever caused the universe to come into existence cannot be made of the same material of the universe. So the universe is matter, space, time. So whatever caused this to come into existence cannot be made of that same material. It must be timeless, it must be spaceless, it must be immaterial. And for it to come into existence from nothing means a personal decision has to be made for this to come into existence. And that is who we call God.
So it goes back to what I said previously, when I said usually when people do not understand this particular situation, they always attribute it to God. Like, how do we know it was God? It was actually a being that actually made the universe. It could also be the case that it was a non-living thing, non-conscious. Yes, it could be, because the theory right now is that there was an explosion, a big bang, right? It could also be that what caused it to happen was actually a non-living thing that probably caused it to come into existence. And we wouldn't call inanimate objects God, obviously. Like we wouldn't call this chair God, or I don't know, whatever, the rug God, we wouldn't call it God. Even if the rug, it is possible that the rug, if you set the rug on fire right now, it's probably what will engulf the whole church in flames, and just a small rug that burned the whole church down. Yeah, it caused so much destruction.
Please allow me to interject. You see, because what he just said now is something that we need to get very well. Because if the scientists have been able to show that the universe came into existence at a particular time, and the universe is basically three things. It is time, space, and matter. Now, none of these things can exist without the other. If you have space and matter, you must have time. If you have space and time, you must have matter. If you have space, and if you have time and matter, you must have space. Now, think about it, sir. If you say an inanimate thing created the universe before there was matter, what would that thing be? A matterless, inanimate thing?
We know for a fact right now that people would, like I said, I don't think these people who are discovering these things have the complete answers to this.
Have a what?
Have the complete answers. They don't have the complete answers to these questions.
Well, one thing they agree on is that time, space, and matter, all cosmologists agree that they came into being at a particular time in the universe. Yeah. Before that time, there was no matter, there was no space, and there was no time. So what is it that would have, and for every event, there must be a cause.
Yeah.
So what is it that I need a greater level of guessing to say a matter in a matterless time created matter?
I wouldn't say it is guessing. But I wouldn't also want to throw it to a God also, or a divine being.
So before we get to the issue of whether it's a God or not, we agree that matter could not have come from matter. Otherwise, matter is already there. So that thing that created the matter was matterless. Time could not have come from time. So that thing that created it was timeless. We're not saying it's God. We're saying that presently it's a matterless thing, a timeless thing, and a thing that cannot be contained in space. At least cosmologists agree that if anything caused the universe, that thing was matterless, it was timeless, because it can't be matter. If matter creates matter, it means that matter was not just created, matter has always existed. But matter did not always exist. It came into being at the same time with time and space. All right? So it cannot be something that has matter, that created, that caused. Let's just talk about it in terms of scientific terms now. Put aside the concept of God. Whatever gave birth to the universe had to be outside of the universe.
Yeah. So if whatever gave birth to you and was outside the universe, why do we now need to now attribute it to God? Because it goes back to...
What else can you attribute it to?
So like I said, there are certain questions that we don't know the answer to. I don't know the answer to that question, and I wouldn't want to jump and guess and say it has to be God, because by doing that, like I said, it's a limiting factor. Why don't we actually find out what actually caused it? Because first of all, there are different particles, or there are different...
Particle is matter.
Particle is...
Hold on. I guess I didn't use the right word.
Okay.
There are different, probably particles is the right word actually. Not the particles that make up matter, because there's a particular stream of particles that actually consist of matter, basically. Like, let me give you an example right now. Like there was somebody who came up with this phenomenon of dark energy. Of dark matter, not dark energy, sorry. Dark matter, yeah. And people say that there's even this theory out there that it was probably dark matter that, collided and probably
But dark matter is matter.
It's not matter in the sense of what we can feel. Not the matter that
the universe, before the universe was created, there was no matter at all.
Yeah.
Whether dark matter, light matter, it was a matterless time.
No.
So
the
matter
you are
have
referring
caused
to, the matter you are referring to right now is the matter that we know right now as, because if I ask you to define matter, you define it as something you can hold, feel.
I'm talking about the matter that the universe is everything in the universe, whether it's electrons, protons, neutrons, dark matter is matter. And all that matter came into being at a particular time. Before that time, there was no matter.
So the thing is this.
It's a cosmological fact.
The thing is this. Like I said also, what you are referring to also is a particular stream of, I will call it...
All matter, sir.
It's not all matter. Hold on, it's not all matter. So the thing is this. What people refer to as dark matter is actually an energy, and it is not. And if I told you right now that the matter that you are referring to right now is energy, you wouldn't say it. You would say it's probably wrong. So, from what they have said is that they have found out, like different energy sources out there. Now they don't understand these things completely, and it's a fact that they don't understand these things, and I also don't understand it also.
Okay, sir.
But
just a moment. Can I say
hold
this?
On,
Do you know the formula that Einstein, matter, energy is equal to matter times the square of the speed of light is equal to mc squared?
Yeah.
Now, I want us to deal with the facts here. You are changing the definition of the matter that makes up the universe. What the cosmologists are saying is that all matter, all energy, all space, all time came into being at a particular time. There was no energy before that time, whether dark, there was nothing before that time.
It's not correct. That's not correct.
That's what the cosmologists say.
That's not what they say.
So what you are saying,
that's not what they say. So first of all, what it is why there's a theory called the Big Bang theory. The Big Bang theory doesn't say that there was an explosion out of nothing. There were energy particles that collided, that exploded. It doesn't say no. It doesn't say. It does no. It doesn't say. Look, the thing is this. What you understand as the universe right now is what we call the galaxies that we have right now. The galaxies, what make up the galaxies in the known universe. The elements there, the elements that we study in chemistry, the laws of physics were existing before the elements in chemistry existed that we know presently. So it doesn't say that there was nothing, like, because when you say there was nothing, then it means that the Big Bang theory itself was wrong. The Big Bang theory says that high energy particles collided together and caused the explosion that brought about the different elements that brought about the universe that we have today. The universe that we have today that consists of the elements. Not saying that there was nothing at all. I don't believe that that's what it says. So I'm not going to say that like I'm an expert in the field of what happened at that point in time. Like I said,
Just pause for a second and think about what you are saying here. Let's imagine for a second, even though when we say nothing, we're not describing a circle that has nothing. We're saying nothing.
so what does that mean?
That means nothing, literally nothing.
Okay,
Yeah.
guys, we have
No.
5 more minutes on this question. Please, we
Okay.
spent a lot of time on this question.
So
5 more minutes to make our points known. Thank you.
All right, so I'll just end with this. Imagine you had eternity, right? You are saying some particles collided. If that is the case, then the universe should be eternal, because that action should have happened in eternity past. It shouldn't have a time to it. What caused those particles to collide to result in the Big Bang? Let's assume that you are saying those particles existed before the Big Bang, which is not the case. However, let's work with what you have said. What caused those particles to collide at that particular time in eternity?
I do not know.
There will always be a problem with that position.
I do not know what caused it to collide, but I am very, very certain that it wasn't a divine being that caused it to collapse.
You're
to
certain
collide.
now.
I am very certain.
Before you were saying, let's not, but you are certain.
So the thing is this, like I said before, we shouldn't throw a divine being where we do not have answers to.
So
we don't, because the thing is, you do not have the answers to that question right now. Nobody has the answer. Can I, for a fact here, say that there's anybody here right now that has the answer to that question?
The question of
You-
God.
so what is the answer?
Made the answer
And you
known.
have like proof and evidence of that?
Yes.
So what?
I think we're going ahead of ourselves. I do think we're going ahead of ourselves. I think, Moyo hasn't spoken, so I would like him to speak. So just last
Now,
5 minutes, please. Let's move on.
Again, the concept of matter, space, and time, we both agree that it exists. Hello,
Agree?
yes?
Yeah.
Now, we both agree that at a point that it came to be, yes. But what look like we don't agree is when or why, if there was a before it came into existence. That is what we do not agree with.
Yeah.
Very good. Now look at this explanation. A denial of a does not mean that it does not exist. Please wait. Now, it means that if I have a soup, normal soup, a normal illustration, a normal soup, and then I have the soup here, and then my baby comes to me and say, my hand is dirty. I keep using this soap every day. It means this is not a soap. That is what you are saying. That it has been, it is there. But for every time it's happening, it can deny that that thing is not a soap because it keeps getting dirty.
It's not. I don't think that is the same. I don't think that's the
Yes,
same.
it is.
I don't think it's the
Because
same because what I am
Because-
driving at, what I'm driving at is this. Yes, from what we've been able to establish right here is that okay, there was a beginning, as we all like to, everybody likes to say there was a beginning. So
do you agree there was a beginning?
yes, I agree that there was a beginning.
Okay, very good. So we know we have a beginning.
Okay.
Now, before the beginning
Okay.
is what you do not agree to. Was there a before the beginning?
Yes.
Very good. Now, before the beginning, what was contained before the beginning? Because from the beginning, everything from the beginning talks about matter. Now, if you are going to talk about before the beginning, it cannot be matter again.
Okay. I think that has been established, and we've established that also. But what I am saying is this:
It is energy.
I'm not trying to say that. So let me put it this way, or let me give an example of a particular scenario so that you can understand what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So let's say I
I
tell
just
you.
want to tell you we have 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes, okay.
We
Quickly,
spend
let
a
me
lot
just
of
say
time
this
here.
very quickly. So,
Okay.
I come to tell you that I saw my my dead grandmother in my room. You know, my room was dark, and I saw her in my room. You know, she was just staying there, you know, looking at me. You know, it was dark, and everywhere was just. She didn't say anything. She was just looking at me, just standing there looking at me. And I closed my eyes quickly, and you know, I slept off, and I woke up in the morning, and then I told somebody else that, oh yeah, look, I saw my dead grandmother, you know, yesterday. She was in my room. She was just standing there, and it was like, okay, how are you sure that it was her that you saw there, and it wasn't some kind of shadow that you were just seeing there, you know? And I'm like, no way, it was definitely my dead grandmother. The real question is that the only answer to that question I've told you?
I don't agree with your illustration.
No, it's the same.
The illustration
Because
that
it's
I would have thought you would have said was that your grandmother, when she was alive, there's a particular way she folds your bedspread.
No,
Your grandmother, when she was alive, there's a particular way, a particular food she serves you. Now she has died, and then you get to your room to sleep in the night. That particular food is there, and your bedspread is folded in that way. We're not saying that we saw God. That's not what we're telling you. We're not saying we saw God, and we're not saying that. We're saying that when we look at the universe and the way it came into being, only God could have created the universe. So if you get to your bed that night and you see your bedspread folded that particular way, you see your cooler of food that particular way, you taste it, and you're like, wow. And your grandmother has died. You will ask yourself 1 million times, is she really dead? Now, that's the proper illustration. When we look at the universe of time, space, and matter.
Even if we were to even say that, like the illustration you have given right now, would we now be correct to say that there could also be other reasons why those things are there? Could it be that it's only my dead grandmother that could have done that day? That could have maybe folded my bed sheet and cooked that food in that particular way? Could it be that it is the only solution? Is what I'm trying to point out here.
To round off this
is
thought,
it the only solution that we have out there, that it must only be a divine being that created the universe?
Okay, so to round off this thought, I want to just say this to you.
Okay.
In the interest of the fact that something matterless, spaceless, and timeless alone could have created at the same time matter, space, and time, I want to read this to you because I'm so happy that you mentioned this man, Michael Faraday, who discovered, electricity. And then you might have said something like, if we say it is God, it doesn't allow us to explore other options. All right. Michael Faraday was a devout Christian. He was of the Sandemanian denomination of the offshoot of the Church of Scotland. He served as an elder, in his church. Okay? This man believed so much in God, and so do many scientists. So I want you to understand that the basic fallacy of your position is that you think that it is as a result of not being able to explain things that people end up concluding that it must have been God. On the contrary, the evidence shows that when people observe things and the way they are, they find out that the only concrete explanation for those things is that there has to be a God here. So that is the difference between the way an atheist thinks and a theist thinks. Many scientists, I can read to you Blaise Pascal. Let me just read that to round up. Blaise Pascal is another scientist that existed in the 17th century. He has been called the architect of modern civilization. He was a brilliant scientist at the frontiers of mathematics, even as a teenager. He is viewed by many as the founder of the probability theory. Do you know what probability is? Maybe this, maybe that. Blaise Pascal was the one that created it. He's a creator of the first model of a computer. And of course, you are familiar with pressure is measured in pascals. It's a physics thing, all right? Pascal said at a point in his life, I submit myself absolutely to Jesus Christ, my Redeemer. all right? A French historian in the 19th century said, seldom has so mighty an intellect submitted with such humility, all right, to the authority of Jesus Christ. So what I'm trying to let you understand is that I need you to know that the supposition that people believe that there's God because they are too lazy to look for any other explanation is not correct. They actually believe the opposite. They look at it and there is no other logical explanation for how something exists except God. And nothing else makes sense until they think about this thing as being created. It now makes them to study that thing. Because what a thing is and why it is there are not the same thing. You can begin to study the what of the universe, but you will never discover the why until you understand that something that is greater than the universe, and only something greater than the universe could have brought the universe into being, not energy particles.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I just want to remind the audience that we can send in our questions and start writing our questions down and give it to the usher to pass it forward. However, we know that if we don't have questions, we will address this first question again in the last 30 minutes of the program. So I just want to know if, I know Moyo was talking, but he was cut short. I don't know if you have any other thing to say. Okay, that's fine. We're just going to go straight into the next question for today. Next question would have been the origin of the universe, but I see that it has been tackled, not completely though. So we'll be going back to that. So my next question here is, how do you explain the origin of life? Because, there's the universe. That's a totally different thing. And then there are, these living organisms, you and me. So how do you explain that from the atheist point of view?
There is no explanation from the atheist point of view, sorry.
Okay, so what do you think is the origin of life?
I think the real question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is life, first of all? Because if I start explaining what life is, then people will probably misunderstand what I'm trying to say or misconstrue what I'm trying to say. So the real question is, what is life, really? So if I ask you right now what is life, people will probably tell me, life is an object that is animate and can move around, has consciousness, can do a whole lot of things, independently, basically. But if I now told you that, okay, is a virus alive? Like, is coronavirus that we're talking about, is it alive? It's a virus, right? It multiplies itself. Is it alive? Is it life itself? Is a bacteria, is it life also? Some people will probably tell you that is not life. That is, I don't know what they probably call it anyway. But for me, that is life. And the scientists all over the world also agree that bacteria, viruses, they also consist of life also. So the origin of life, from what you are asking from right now, is the origin of us conscious beings, as the way human life, because we are self-conscious. We are aware of our surroundings, and the origin is very simple. It has been proven time and time again that we are made up of, or our earliest ancestors are the bacteria and the viruses that try to kill us right now. So the origin of life, like I just said right now, is from those simple organisms, the viruses, the bacteria.
It's been proven.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Because
carry on.
Okay.
So
I'm happy we have a doctor.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, in Nigeria, I noticed that they don't teach evolution in schools. For some reason, it is something that is almost like a taboo, and it's very, very unfortunate, actually.
Do you know what it's called, that thing? It's called something of evolution. Do you know what that is?
What is?
It's called the what of evolution?
The theory of evolution.
Fact of evolution. But when you say it's been proven, I'm going to allow my colleagues to.
I don't think he's done.
It is. It's funny you say so. Actually, it's very funny you say so. There's also the theory of gravity. I don't see anybody jumping from buildings now.
It's called the law. It's called the law.
No.
The law of gravity.
It is actually a theory. Can you, because it's a theory. It is actually mathematics out there. Is this something that, it is widely accepted?
Mr. Uyi.
No, the thing is this.
It's called the law of gravity.
Even if we call it the law of gravity, it is
Isaac
a theory.
Newton went to the Leaning Tower of Pisa and demonstrated the law using a 10-pound weight and a 1-pound weight. It's a law. A law is a fact.
Evolution
is not a law.
It has been proven.
How? When?
Okay, let's...
Okay, let me
that is
educate
a
you.
lot.
Let me
yeah,
educate
please
you. I think,
Let
so
him
the thing is
educate
this,
us.
like I said, evolution is not taught in schools.
Okay.
It's why many people would not understand the way evolution works. So the thing is this, if you wanted, if let's say Jessica had you have a sibling right now, and how will you test that your sibling is actually your blood sibling? How will you test that?
A DNA test.
DNA test.
Yeah.
Thank you. Why do you think that your DNA and your DNA of your sibling should match?
So don't pull me
Yeah.
into this, please.
So the thing is this, we know it will match because people who are siblings, they share, if you come from the same parents, you will share the same DNA as your parents, So if, let's say your father's brother, his children also, their DNA will be very similar to your DNA also. That's why if your father's brother, or let's say your father's father, he had some kind of disease, you may not have that disease, but your father's brother's children will probably have that disease because you share similar characteristics with those people also. So one thing that many people do not realize is that we, as human beings and chimpanzees, we share the same DNA structure. Hold on, let me just finish. I'm trying to educate
Yes, can I just say here that human beings and bananas share about 60% of banana. 60% of our DNA are similar.
Okay.
So carry on.
Yeah. So the thing is this.
Please no laughing.
So
Thank
hold
you.
on. So, and chimpanzees, we share the same, about 90% of our DNA is the same with chimpanzees. And if you keep going down the chain of of living things that we know them,
Okay.
Chimpanzees, even like the whole mammalia family, they all share the same DNA characteristics. And that tells us that they come from a similar ancestor, an ancestor that gave birth to the mammalia family, basically. That is what, because if that is not correct, then it means that DNA results that people go and used to check for children and they check for killers also is false also. But this is known to be true.
Okay.
If you share the same DNAs, as a particular organism, and what people in science have been able to show is that they've been able to show that even up to shrimps in the ocean, and up to like the DNAs of viruses and bacteria, we have very, very similar characteristics with them also, with plants also. And that tells you that there was one common ancestor that brought about all this. And these things, the ancestor we're talking about is not an ancestor that was, conscious, that was probably self-conscious, like the way we are right now as human beings.
Okay.
As human beings, we are self-conscious, we are about our environment. This is an ancestor that was very, very primitive, probably bacteria.
Okay.
Or a strand of virus.
Okay.
But I know it's very, very difficult for people to believe, but it
requires faith
it's
to
not
accept
faith,
what
it's
you're
not
saying.
Faith.
Okay,
It's not faith. Because
okay.
if it requires faith, then it means that the DNA test that people believe right now also requires faith.
Uyi, before
as
you come in,
simple
I
as
just
that.
want him to establish for a certain fact before I hand over to the panelists that your origin of life is from bacteria and viruses.
It's not from bacteria and viruses. It's not from bacteria. You are getting me wrong. It's not from bacteria and viruses. The thing is
Okay.
this. The
Can I
origin
know-
of life
can I
is
know-
all carbon-based. That's what we know.
All carbon-based.
It's all carbon-based, okay?
Okay.
It is the mixture of elements, as people will say, basically.
Sagoye, can I know if I'm related to a rat by DNA test?
Yes, you are. We as human beings are related to rats. All mammals.
No.
are related
If
together.
they want to know who committed a crime, like in a house now, and there's some rats in the house, and I'm also there, can they use DNA testing? Our DNAs are very similar. Can they, if they do the DNA and it looks like my DNA, can I say no? It's not me. It's probably Jerry, the rat who stole that meat from the pot.
Yeah, of course. With DNA test, we can know it wasn't. When they look at the DNA of the rat, it doesn't have the same number of.
The fact of the matter is that the way they use the DNA testing is significant because there are no two human beings in the universe, even you and your twin, that have the same exact 100% DNA. DNA shows us not just that we are similar. The actual wonder in DNA is that there are no two human beings with the exact complement of DNA. It's so precise that even twins don't have the same fingerprints. It shows you that there is something greater than evolution at work here. There is nothing that has a common origin, all right, that has billions of like there are 7 billion human beings now. There have been billions and billions in which you cannot find two of them that are exactly similar. You cannot find two human beings that are exactly similar. Evolution does not explain that. But I'm going to allow my colleagues to.
I think that what you have said is not completely correct. Okay. I think what you have said is not completely correct. So even though our DNA is not 100% the same, but there are certain parts, just like what I said, 90% of the human DNA right now, we share it with chimpanzees. It's over. I think it's over 90%, not even 90%, over 90%. Yes. And these things that we share with them, the things that make up the DNA is basically the functions of human beings. Basically, like there's a part of the DNA that is for hands. There's a part for the DNA that also makes the mammalian gangs also, that we are able to breastfeed. That part is in the DNA also. It is coded in it because the DNA is basically our code. Without the DNA, you can't have any human being. And the DNA, what is DNA? It is just chemical. The DNA is a string of code that basically determines the functions of a human being. Now, there's a particular, I don't completely know how it works completely, but I know that if the closer you are, sibling-wise, the more part of your DNA is shared, basically. And this is a fact. So even if we can come here and say that 100% of DNA is not the same thing, yeah, it may not be the same thing, but the DNA, we know for a fact, with the way it is structured right now, siblings share the same DNA, and as human beings, people have traced back the origins of life, even up to viruses and bacteria that existed millions and millions of years ago. We can all come and say that it's a lie and it's difficult for us to believe, but there is actually living evidence of evolution. And people have carried out countless tests. It's not a theory. People who say it's a theory, I laugh when I hear people say that evolution is a theory. It's actually very, very funny when people say something like that. It is not a theory at all. It is something that has been proven in the lab so many times, first of all, and there is actually evidence, living evidence of evolution. It's why nobody disputes it.
Okay.
So that's how I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much. Who would like to go first? Okay, Ayo.
Contrary to what you said, there is, read my lips, there is actually no evidence out there for evolution. Yes, I'm on camera and I'm saying it. There is no evidence for evolution. Now you have what you call microevolution and you have what you call macroevolution. So I'll be very specific with what I'm saying. There is no evidence for macroevolution, which is what Darwinian theory is all about. Right? You can have some form of adaptation in terms of, that's why I said microevolution within a species. But if you are talking about a bird developing, a fish developing into a bird, there is no such thing. There is no evidence for such. Now, when you look at the fossil records, right, I don't know if you are familiar with the Cambrian explosion. You are familiar with it. Now, in the Cambrian layer, right, this was a time in history when you had fully formed complex organisms arising from nowhere. And there were no intermediate forms. for those organisms. I said fully formed, complex organisms, not cells, not bacteria, not virus. Fully formed, complex organisms, and there were no pre-intermediate forms. Now, according to Charles Darwin, he himself said, if you find any species out there, any species that you cannot build, right, step by step, from the smallest to where it is, then my theory is wrong. So, by Darwin's own pen, evolution is false. And I'm telling you, there is no evidence for macroevolution.
Can I correct you there?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
What you just described, the Cambrian explosion that people talk about,
Yeah.
there is actually the step by step of to get there. The explosion that he talks about is the way life form was able to different life forms were able to form, and the explosion they're talking about is millions of years. This is not something that happened over 1,000 years. This is millions of years.
Okay. Have you read about the Cambrian explosion before? Cambrian explosion, what you mentioned.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And it isn't what like you described, that you can't build a step by step. They didn't have ancestors.
Do you know how long?
They had ancestors also.
Do you know how long the theory of evolution is said to have taken place over? How many years?
Millions, if not millions of years, or billions.
No, billions of years.
Yeah.
Billions, about 4.5 billion years. Now,
not 4.5 billion years, because that's the age of the Earth. I believe it's a lot.
When do you think the strand of viruses started changing?
I'm not sure the exact date that evolution.
Okay, so billions of years.
But it's not billions of years. I know it is maybe over hundreds of millions of years. I am not very sure, but it's not as old as the Earth itself.
Actually, it's taking billions of years.
It's not. The Earth is 4 billion years.
Okay, so can we say like 1 billion years?
Okay,
for a virus to become a human being.
Yeah.
Now, within 20 million years, the Cambrian explosion occurred between 540 and 560 million years ago, according to this. Between 20 million years, let's say 1 billion years now, or let's even say 900 million years, within 20 million years, major forms of animal life were found. Before those 20 million years, none of those life forms are found in fossil records.
You know, first of all, it doesn't necessarily say that, the Cambrian explosion doesn't necessarily say that before, like we had rats, we suddenly just saw fossils of rats somewhere. No. There were complex organisms before the Cambrian explosion.
No.
Let me give you life. This is a
quote of animals. Calm down.
It was a variety of animals is what they couldn't explain, because of the variety of animals that they couldn't explain.
It was after they could not explain it.
The variety of animals that existed at that period in time.
Before the or after the Cambrian explosion.
Should I read it to you?
The Cambrian explosion is what I'm talking about. The period in time of the Cambrian explosion. What the fossil records there. They couldn't explain, and it is something that has been explained. It's not even.
It's the same explanation we are
wait. This is a quote from David Berlinski.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that name?
No, I'm not.
Okay, he's a philosopher. Now, he's also an agnostic, so he's not a Christian, right? He doesn't know whether God exists. So that's who an agnostic is. He doesn't believe in God, and he doesn't know whether he exists. But this is from David Berlinski. He says, there are gaps in the fossil graveyard, places where there should be intermediate forms, but where there is nothing whatsoever instead. No paleontologist denies that this is so. It is simply a fact. Darwin's theory and the fossil record are in conflict. This is not me. This is an agnostic saying this.
So
I would rather you quoted an evolutionary biologist instead of a philosopher.
The Cambrian explosion or Cambrian radiation was an event approximately 541 million years ago in the Cambrian period, where practically all major animal phyla started appearing in the fossil record. So I want you to understand that there is something here. There are some facts that you're not willing to accept. And then there are some theories you want to make facts. You are running away from someone. But let's carry on.
No.
Let's go on.
So
Okay, so,
the editor, the thing is, we are basically saying the same thing, and what you've read is the same thing that I've been saying. The real challenge will be if, in the theory of evolution, is if, let's say, we found a human skeleton in the Cambrian period or before the Cambrian period. That's where Darwin's theory would have just collapsed immediately, and the theory of evolution will never exist anymore. If we could find an animal right now that exists at this moment right now, the fossil record of an animal right now that existed at that period, then the whole theory will collapse. What the challenge that scientists had on the Cambrian explosion is they didn't understand why there were so many different species that came up at that period in time. It doesn't necessarily mean that, and hold on, and the fossil gaps that people talk about, people are still investigating and they still find out different lives, different life forms. I don't think that people have been able to, but even back to the earliest form of life, it has already been established already. There might be some little pieces missing in there.
Can I read this? Can I read this to you? The timeline of human evolution outlines the major events of the evolutionary lineage of the modern Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, throughout the history of life, began some 4.2 billion years ago. So here is the fact.
Where is that? 4.2 billion.
That's Wikipedia. Evolution, the time frame.
Can you read that again? I said Homo sapiens began 4.2 billion.
The evolutionary history.
That's what I'm saying.
Evolution started 4.2 billion. If you're going to talk about how long it takes. So now, within 20 million years, all the major animal fossils within 20 million years, 541 million years ago, something that started. So what you're saying is that when you look at our DNA, you can see that, okay, human beings, then chimpanzees, then monkeys, and all of that. Each one of those things take millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. Going back that to the horses, right, to the birds, to the fishes, and all that. Each one of those, that would have taken about 2 billion years. What the Cambrian explosion confuses cosmologists about is that, paleontologists about is that within 20 million years, all the major animal life forms were found. And before that time, none of them was found. So this thing about the fact that...
It is the same thing. I don't get this. I don't get it. It seems like there's some kind of confusion right here.
Okay, what is it?
So, are you saying that there was a jump in the chain or something?
I'm telling you that...
Is that what he's trying to say, that there was a jump in the chain?
It's showing you that there's no chain.
Thank you.
That is wrong.
That is wrong.
That is wrong.
There's no chain.
Now,
wrong.
see,
Oh my goodness.
what I have observed,
It is wrong.
The first basis when we
There
started,
can't be a
we
chain.
started with, you said that whatever we cannot explain, people like me will say it is God. Somebody like you will say no.
It's evolution.
Science.
Evolution has become
Now,
your God.
science is now confused, yet you still claim that science is
Why
superior.
are you the one confusing science?
No, it is as it is.
You are the one that
It is
saying
as
that
it
it's
is.
confused.
Paleontologists
Why
are
are you
confused by the
no,
Cambrian
no,
explosion.
Because
So
for-
first of all, people...
Now, Cambrian explosion
hold on.
denounced
They-
evolution in itself.
It doesn't-
Then explained
Oh my
that something
goodness,
happened
what I
at
say.
one point. Something happened at one point that made millions of life forms to happen, unexplainable. And then they say, take it like that. That's the way it should be. And then you say, yes, I will take it like
First
that.
of all,
Yes, sir.
what you have said is completely wrong. I understand that many people do not understand the way evolution works. I don't understand it completely. First of all, and what you have described right now it doesn't negate it doesn't negate evolution.
Then why will
It
God
is-
negate?
no,
Why
first
will-
of all, hold
why
on,
will
hold
you
on,
now
hold on.
negate God?
Hold on, I would suggest that maybe
Can I ask
if you have any spare time, you can read about evolution.
Can I have...
That's what I would say. First of all,
Can I ask
number
you,
then
some direct questions?
Okay, ask.
Number one, do you think that we have not read about evolution? Do you honestly think so?
I think that majority, I will say this, and I will say it wholeheartedly. I do not think that you've read about it, first of all, from the things that you have said.
Okay, can we, from this
and
meeting...
then I would also say that even if you have read about it, you also believe that it's all a bunch of garbage.
Just like you believe that God is a bunch of garbage.
Exactly.
So we're both biased. Can
So we are
agree that?
both now. Do we agree?
No.
Can we
It's not-
look
it's
at
not-
this meeting? Let's look at
it's
this
not-
meeting. In
it's
this
not-
meeting,
no,
in
no,
this
no.
meeting,
It's not the same.
in
It's
this
not the
meeting,
same.
wait.
No,
In this
it's not the
meeting,
same.
did I
It's
tell
not
you
the
that
same.
did I tell you that evolution has taken place over billions of years? Did I mention 4 point something billion years? Did I mention that?
Yeah, you said that.
Did you disagree?
I disagree with
Who
that.
was right? According to
So,
Wikipedia, who was right?
Based
No,
on
just,
what
just
I said.
based
hold
on,
on, hold on.
based
It said-
on.
So what Wikipedia said is that it's because what you are talking right now, what you are trying to say
From
right
the
now,
first life forms. to this
it
point.
doesn't say the first life. We said the processes began then. Okay, it doesn't say the first life forms.
Process of what?
Hold on. So the thing is this: what you do not understand is this. You can think of what people may call as some kind of evolutionary beginning, a beginning of.
This is an objective source
It is
of
an objective
information.
source, but you are misconstruing what that is saying.
Should I read another source for you about
It is the
how
same
long
thing.
evolution
You
has
are
taken place?
Misconstruing what it is saying.
Okay, I think that we'll go 5 more minutes and then we'll go on a break.
The life forms that we are talking about, the earliest life forms of the ancestors that we trace back to, not from the beginning, because the beginning of evolution is from the theory of what evolution about is basically the hot boiling oceans, the chemicals in the hot boiling oceans, not any kind of.
Can I ask you another question?
Hold on. Let me just finish.
Okay.
Not any kind of life form that we recognize right
Water
now.
and all of that.
At the moment in which we have carbon present,
Yes.
okay, and the carbon molecules are beginning to come together, because the
Yes.
molecules is what forms life.
Good.
And if the molecules are coming together, are we going to now say that the carbon molecules that have come together are now go constitute as beginning of life? No. If I said that right here, you all think I'm crazy. And there are some scientists who actually will tell you that yes, evolution starts from that period where we have carbon molecules coming together. But what I am saying is that where we can trace up to from the beginning and when things started to, really take form, and we start having viruses and those kind of unicellular organisms that we talk about, right now, the very, very primitive organisms. It probably happened some 1 billion or so years ago. The evolutionary process that it is talking about right now is when the carbon molecules are coming together, when we have the fusion of carbon molecules together.
Let me ask you a question.
So,
First of all, what you have said violates the law of biogenesis, right? It violates completely the law of biogenesis, that certain chemicals just came together and gave rise to the first life. I mean, if that is so, scientists would have been able to replicate that process.
they've replicated it in the
No,
lab.
they have not. They have not. They have not. Trust me, they have not. There is no way. There is no way. Believe me. Now,
Do you know that?
But let me
do you
ask
know
you a
that
question.
people have been able to create enzymes in labs
wait. Let me ask you a question.
with just chemical processes? They've been able to evolve enzymes. Even the drugs that you take, the drugs that people take, that people used to, they
You
use
can-
evolutionary processes to create some of those
can
drugs,
only
and you say
make
that is a lie.
enzymes.
What's an
It is
enzyme?
very
What's
funny.
an
What's an
enzyme?
enzyme?
What's an enzyme?
What's an enzyme?
It's a chemical compound. That's what it is.
An enzyme is a
It's a
protein.
protein.
Yeah, it's
It
a chemical
is-
compound.
it
That's
is-
what it is a chemical. It's not a chemical compound or not.
It's
Is
a
it?
protein.
But is it a chemical compound?
It's a chemical compound.
Yeah, and
Okay.
people are able to grow these things in the lab, and then we are
Is it a
saying-
living thing?
Is it a living thing?
It is consists of it is the thing is this: those processes that make the enzymes are what led to the complex human beings or the complex beings that we see today.
Really?
Yes.
No. Okay. Let me read this to you. Let me read this to you. The earliest evidence of life comes from biogenic carbon signatures and stomatolite fossils discovered in 3.7 billion year old meta-sedimentary rocks from western Greenland. In 2015, possible remains of biotic life were found in 4.1 billion year old rocks in Western Australia. You see, you need to understand this, that you are willing to say that there's no God, but there's evolution. But the fact shows that from the first forms of life 4 billion years ago till now, within 20 million years, 500 million years ago, the major forms of animal life came into being. Animal life that should take about 2.5 billion years to move from one form to another were found within 20 million years. And I'm telling you that the paleontologists are saying that this shows that macroevolution is just a theory. It is not factual.
That's not true. First of
Are you
all.
a paleontologist?
First of all, I think some of the things you said.
Are you an expert in fossil?
Some of the things that you said, I don't know if it seems like you're trying to twist them or something like that.
Should I give it to you to read yourself?
First of all,
do you want to read it?
First of all,
because you're going away from fact to my interpretation of things now.
It's not about you trying to interpret things, okay? The way evolution works is Evolution doesn't say it should take 1 billion years for you to get from.
It does.
It
You've read, are you sure you've read the theory of evolution?
It doesn't tell you that this is the exact time span of. It should take 1 billion years from you to get to a virus.
It does
human
give
being.
you a fantastic range, and there are
It gives-
hundreds of
Okay. It
millions
gives
of
you-
years.
No,
We
does it
and
give you
Ebele, we and
does
Ebele,
it
can I
give
have
you
your
a
attention?
Particular time
A
Range.
range.
Of
Range.
millions
Thank
of
you.
years.
Thank you.
Millions.
Oh Lord.
So when
Thank
you
you
leave
very
that
much.
range, you are
Thank
getting
you.
to another thing. That's
Okay.
evolution.
The
It
range.
does.
We, let's calm down,
It's
please.
weird.
Thank you very much. It
Okay,
has been
okay,
an
okay.
exciting
This is really
conversation, but it's time for us to go on break now,
It's-
and we will be back. We'll be back. Conserve your energy and your
All right.
answers. We'll be back. Thank you very much, guys.